Hello and howdy, folks. I'm here to talk about one of my favorite film of all time. Not one of, my favorite film of all time, and that's Steven Spielberg's Jaws. Saw it for the second time on the big screen a couple days ago. I've seen Jaws so many times that I don't even know how many times I've seen it. It's one of my first movie memories. I've watched it since I was very young. I mean, I know that I had seen it multiple times by the age of 7. You know, easy. I can distinctly remember watching it. And again, like, when you're a kid, you watch everything a lot, so I don't, even know. I just know that it was probably like a part of my subconscious mind by the time I was 8 years old. In fact, like, Jaws is a whole chicken or the egg type of scenario for me. I don't know if I loved movies like Jaws before I saw Jaws, and that's why I loved it so much, or did I see Jaws and it, solidify my taste, and I love movies like Jaws because I love Jaws so much. I don't know if I was predisposed to love Jaws or not, but the themes that Jaws explores continue to be my very favorite films. Primarily man versus nature. I love man going against something that technically cannot be defeated. Also monster movies. Jaws is a monster movie. I love monster movies. I love films in confined spaces. Jaws, the last half of Jaws takes place on a boat. I just love Jaws, and I think it pretty much is the blueprint for all of my favorite films to follow. I got to Jaws being my favorite film by answering the question, and you can do this too. The cliched question of if you could only watch one film for the rest of your life, if you were deserted on an island, that somehow had a working television and DVD player, what film would you have with you? And, give it some thought, and you will arrive at your favorite film of all time. And for me, that's Jaws. Jaws is the last movie I could ever watch. I could watch that, endlessly to entertain myself. The competition, a very close second, it practically comes down to a coin toss for me, is Dr. Strangelove, but Jaws has got it beat. Wow, I don't even know what to say. This is, it's an 11 for me. I love the film. The experience couldn't have been more different seeing it on the big screen than I did the first time. The first time I saw it was at one of Los Angeles's most established, elitist theaters, the ArcLight, and that had a 35 millimeter print. So that was, cool to see it, in an archived 35 millimeter. The one draw, also the crowd, I would have to say, for better or worse, was bigger. And better, I guess, more involved, just because it was nearly sold out. But like halfway through the film, there were severe audio issues that remained for the duration of the film. And that's why I said for better or worse with the crowd, because the crowd was getting upset. The crowd was getting angry. People were leaving, demanding their money back. And I mean, like, standing up in the theater and, demanding their money back. So again, it's like there was a palpable tension and anger in that theater, which of course harshed, my buzz. So it and this go around, it was not a nicer theater, kind of a more underground theater. It was an evening performance, but I wouldn't even call the theater a quarter full. Maybe a quarter full is fair. And this time the presentation was a 4K digital restoration. 4K is the newest high-definition digital standard, I suppose you'd say. I mean, perhaps there's something, better that I don't know about, but I think 4K is now becoming quite standard. I know that at least 4K is slowly coming into the homes, into home theater. But most theatrical digital presentations are 4K. This is a 4K restoration of Jaws, and it was absolutely gorgeous. The presentation was flawless. Just bright, beautiful, crisp images. The sound was amazing. Again, I've always said that about films that you know and love, and finally seeing them on the big screen. The biggest change is going to be the sound. It's now, you're now immersed in that world of sound instead of just having it come from your, small television speakers. And I just think it's much more transportive. It was a good experience. And again, the crowd, even though it wasn't as packed as I would imagine, that I arrived early because I was excited and wanted to get a good seat. And yes, I was prepped and pumped for this film. So I was a little disheartened that people weren't fighting over seats or something, but it was a good crowd reaction nonetheless. Obviously, the people who were there were fans and appreciated the film. I had the feeling that a dad brought his two kids. They sat kind of in front of me and to the left. I thought, wow, what a cool dad. For him to bring his, teenaged kids to see Jaws on the big screen, perhaps their very first time of watching the film. I don't know, I was impressed with that. I thought that was cool. The film itself, gosh, I don't know what to say. It's taken from a novel by Peter Benchley. The novel is really good. I read the novel a couple times in my high school years. Peter Benchley also co-wrote the screenplay. I can't tell you the other name, the other co-writer. He co-wrote the screenplay, directed by Steven Spielberg. Perhaps his maybe you could call it breakthrough. I mean, he certainly changed the game. So I think if he changed cinema, that undoubtedly changed his career. Jaws is pretty much referred to as the first blockbuster. Came out in the summer of 1975 and broke all records that had existed. Again, it set a new standard and told the studios that, hey, maybe during the summer when, no one has anything to do, we should come up with these big, epic extravaganza films. So Steven Spielberg ushered in the age of the blockbuster. So that's his impact on the world of film. Actually, the theater I saw this at is doing a Spielberg retrospective. So that's why they were showing Jaws. It's the first film of the retrospective. They're following it up with Raiders of the Lost Ark, E.T., and Schindler's List. And really, I mean, you look at those four films, together, it's like, yeah, okay, you can see why Steven Spielberg is the king of Hollywood, basically. And even when he makes subpar films, which he definitely has, they have to be forgiven. They have to be forgiven. Just because he's impacted the world of cinema in a huge way. Perhaps top three, maybe more than anyone. I would definitely say the Hollywood that exists today exists because of Spielberg. So yeah, there you go. Okay, so it's incredibly well directed. It's gorgeously shot. there's a style that would just become synonymous with Spielberg. He invents some camera shots, maybe not necessarily angles, but he invents some camera shots here, which I think is great. Though there's it's an effect where it's been used several times since by Spielberg, since he invented it, and then by everyone else in the aftermath. But it first appears with Brody on the shark attack in broad daylight on the beach when the little Kettner boy gets eaten off of his raft. They got the effect by, okay, if I understand it correctly or remember it correctly, they take a camera from a starting position on a track. They zoom it all the way in. So you've got a camera somewhat back, but yet zoomed in all the way. And simultaneously, you move the camera so the actual physical camera moves forward while zooming out. So you get this, the physical camera is moving forward, but yet the lens is moving backwards, and you get this, I don't know, like tunneling effect. It's even like kind of hard to describe, but anyway, Spielberg invented that. Perhaps credit should go to the director of photography as well. I don't know how that works. The camera operator, who knows who actually said what when. But anyway, that's the first shot of its kind right then and there. And again, that shot, it's almost like you don't see it much anymore because it's so Spielberg. It's so, I don't want to say cliched, but you can't pull that shot off unless you're Steven Spielberg, basically. If you do, you owe him money. It's just like this crew is, inventing camera shots. So it's very well directed. I'm not a director. I think I can appreciate that art, but it still kind of somewhat remains a mystery to me. I think half of directing is editing too, so it's obviously well edited. To talk about the musical score, I would say besides Star Wars, and really I would have to put Star Wars second. I think Jaws would have to be the most recognizable film score of all time. Funny enough, John Williams, the genius John Williams, did both, of course. The music is amazing, and that's what was really just loud as hell and just pounding on those speakers, and it was just amazing. Just a fantastic score, and again, probably the most iconic music of film history. The performances are all great. You've got Richard Dreyfuss, you've got Robert Shaw. Why did I just forget his name? My gosh. He plays Brody. There's like 3 names to remember in the whole damn movie, and I can't remember. I can remember Lorraine Gray, who plays Chief Brody's wife. But why? Man, why did I just forget his name? Lord Almighty. Anywho, all the performances are really good. All the characters are really fleshed out. Even like characters you don't see much of, they seem fully motivated. Even like characters who come on and have like one paragraph, a few lines. They're like given enough stage business, and again, given enough color that I don't know, it's like you know them instantly when they come on the screen. They used a lot of locals. This was shot on location in, I guess, the New England area. They used a lot of locals. They cast locally. Again, you get that feel. You get that these are fishermen. And, cranky townspeople. Because they were probably cranky townspeople because there's a huge film production going on. I think all the characters are fantastic. I think that Quint, played by Shaw, is one of the great film characters of all time. He, I think, also kind of doubles. There's two villains in Jaws, and that is Jaws, the monster. But then you have this other monster, this human monster, and that's Quint, who, never stops, is obsessed, even at the peril of his own life and the lives of those around him. So he isn't, like, evil per se, but he's uncompromising. You could probably perhaps call him uncaring, and that leads him to this slightly villainesque performance. Again, he's a complex character. Robert Shaw just brings that to life. It's one of my favorite screen performances of all time. This film has one of my favorite scenes, actually probably my favorite scene of all time, where they've just had a battle with Jaws. They're about to have, the almost penultimate conflict with Jaws. It's where, they're all chilling out in the bottom of the boat. It starts off easy where they're comparing scars and bonding. And then it leads into a Quint monologue delivered by Robert Shaw about the USS Indianapolis. And then it leads into singing sea chanties. And it's just, it's just beautiful acting throughout. It seems just so natural. In that moment, you become one with the crew. You are suddenly there on the boat with them. It must be said that Robert Shaw improvised, if you can call it that, that USS Indianapolis speech, because he was actually on the USS Indianapolis. Yes, the Quint is telling that story, but the story is Robert Shaw's. So when you watch that scene, you're watching him tell a story from his life. And I just think it's magic. That's cinema right there. It's magic. So since he's actually telling something that is true, I think it just has a much more impact. You can see the impact that it has on the other actors in the scene. I just think it's tremendous. It's just tremendous. And again, that whole collection, from comparing the scars to the Indianapolis monologue to the sea shanties, up until Jaws's appearance by ramming the boat, I would have to say is the greatest scene of all time. In film history that I've seen, at least. It's like music. It's just perfect. I don't know what else to say about it. I don't know. It's just great. The special effects are great. Jaws looked awesome. I still think he holds up. If they ever do anything, this film cannot be touched. If this film is touched with CGI or with re-editing, I don't know. I would give up. I don't know what I'm giving up, but I would just give up. Jaws still looks great because he's actually there. It's an actual giant robotic shark, and it's physical and you can see it. Again, I don't know why people are so obsessed with CGI. Not because it's better for production and cheaper, I suppose. I just miss the days of puppetry, I suppose. I don't know what I enjoyed thinking about this. Again, I really started thinking more about Quint as a villain, because he he doesn't stop. He's filled with hubris, which of course when humanity is filled with hubris, a human is filled with hubris, their downfall is inevitable and just around the corner. And we meet Quint, and he's full of hubris. So we kind of subconsciously know that he's on the way out. I found it and perhaps I've noticed it before, but I really started to think about it this time just because I was so fascinated with his performance this time, this go-around. I found it very unique that both Quint and Jaws are essentially killed by the same object, and that is that's the air tank. You know, the air tank that will eventually end up in Jaws' mouth, then will explode. Is first restrained, is locked up on the orca, on the boat. And then when Jaws jumps out of the water and smashes down on the back of the boat, you know, the front of the boat lurches up, and that air tank is dislodged from its place, from its holding. Quint is holding on for dear life should he slide into the gaping maw of Jaws. And that air tank, that same air tank, falls out of its container and crushes Quint's hand. That same hand which is gripping on for dear life, that air tank crushes his hand, which sends him sliding into the waiting jaws of Jaws. And we all know how that ends. So I kind of found it very, very clever that the same object, that same air tank, would essentially be responsible for the destruction of both of the villains in the film. I just was like, maybe I had thought about that before, but I really thought about that a lot this time. I really enjoyed it. You know, I feel like I could keep on talking about it, just to talk about it, but I don't know. I think I've said all I've got to say. It's just gorgeous. It's just a perfect film. You know, it's about 2 hours long, and it's 2 hours that just disappear. You know, just disappear. I think that's fantastic. One thing that I had not noticed before the first time I saw this on the big screen, but for being a summer blockbuster, albeit the first summer blockbuster, there's practically no credits. You know, there's, at the beginning of the film, there's, you know, produced by, directed by, written by, score by, the three main cast members, and then the movie starts. After the film, it's like directed by, produced by, shot by, then they, you know, give the cast, you know, they credit the score again, and then the credits are over. I mean, for, again, a huge special effects driven summer blockbuster, the credits, like, total from beginning and end, are easily, I would say, under 90 seconds. Which I think is, I mean, it's unheard of. It's weird. You know, you'd have to go back to the old days where the credits were before the film, and there weren't that many. And then at the end, it was just the end, and you got out of there. It was kind of the same way. So I'm just amazed by that. That so few people would be credited on such a monumental film. You know, I don't know what else to say. I'm actually just ran through 24 minutes without any problems whatsoever, so I've got to get out of here. So there you go. That's Jaws. It's my favorite film of all time. Hefty Hall of Fame. I give it a solid 11. If you've never seen Jaws, I don't want to know you. You know, what's wrong with you? You've got to rectify that mistake immediately. So there you go. That's Jaws. Thank you very much.